Even before this nation was established, a debate has raged over the appropriate size of national government in a democratic society. Many claim that this is the single most prominent debate that shapes society and government policies. One can even point to the introduction of the Bill of Rights into the Constitution as an act of balancing a strong central government with individual freedom. The Constitution provided for a federal government that has numerous powers to tax, regulate, and oversee the people, and so a Bill of Rights was added to this to provide for more personal and state liberty. History has shown us time and time again how numerous political, social, and economic matters have boiled down to the issue of big versus small, powerful versus weak, and presence versus absence when it comes to government in our everyday life. But what about today? How is the big government versus small government issue sneaking into our modern American political sphere? Well, the recent 2009 and 2012 healthcare reform debate has become in large part a subsidiary debate of the broader argument regarding big versus small government, and whether government should have a bigger or smaller role in the healthcare industry. It seems that leaning on the side of big government is the looming idea of national healthcare, a proposal that has been trying to get through U.S. Congress since the 19th century. And of course today, President Barack Obama has issued the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare, that puts in place comprehensive health insurance reforms that will occur over the next 4 years and raises the question, will the government play too big of a role in the healthcare industry under this new piece of legislation? Many Americans are heated about this issue, and the 2012 presidential candidates were found debating it furiously.
When you look at Obamacare, the Congressional Budget Office has said it will cost $2,500 a year more than traditional insurance. It cuts $716 billion from Medicare to pay for it. I want to put that money back in Medicare for our seniors.
One, if you've got health insurance, it doesn't mean a government takeover. You keep your own insurance, you keep your own doctor, but it does say insurance companies can't jerk you around. If you don't have health insurance, we're essentially setting up a group plan that allows you to benefit from group rates that are typically 18% lower than if you're out there trying to get insurance on the individual market.
There was a survey done of small businesses across the country. It said, what's been the effect of Obamacare on your hiring plans? And 3/4 of them said it makes us less likely to hire people.
But while the candidates seem to know what they're talking about, do the people really know what's going on? Obamacare is being widely debated, but hardly understood. Does the public even know what Obamacare is? We took to the streets to find out how Penn State students fared with this topic.
Is that healthcare?
Patient protection.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
My parents will still pay for that, right? I'm gonna be honest, I have not put a lot of thought into that one.
I'm not sure.
To get healthcare provided for whatever job I get.
I don't know. Well, when we get there, we'll see where it goes.
Nothing.
I hate them.
I support them.
Frankly, I'm not too well researched in this area. I don't know what that entails, so I'm not sure about the age.
Age rating results. I haven't dug deeply enough into the act to talk about that, sorry.
Not sure.
I don't really know anything about it, so I don't have a strong opinion, but it doesn't sound like a bad thing.
America has always prided itself on being a country of free speech, debate, and not so quiet opinions. But does this even matter when the public cannot properly describe what exactly they have an opinion on? Obamacare can be confusing, let's face it. It's over 2,700 pages long of convoluted legalese. But with the internet and at least a little bit of curiosity, anyone can break it down into understandable points. Well, let's try to do that now. President Obama's healthcare reform did not grant universal healthcare access to all Americans. It simply requires that all citizens purchase private health insurance coverage, and consequently it prohibits private insurers from barring someone from purchasing said coverage. Universal healthcare, on the other hand, deals more with insurance companies and the government being one and the same. Nonetheless, Obamacare is the closest to universal healthcare that the U.S. has ever gotten, and the law follows a century of efforts to reform the American healthcare system. In 1912, former President Theodore Roosevelt championed national health insurance as he unsuccessfully tried to ride his progressive bull moose party back into the White House.
The right to adequate medical care and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health.
Decades later, in 1935, it was Teddy's fifth cousin, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who favored creating national health insurance amid the Great Depression. But ultimately, he put his efforts into pushing for Social Security first. During World War II, when Roosevelt established wage and price controls, businesses were not allowed to attract workers with higher paychecks. So instead, they had to compete through added benefits, including company-provided health insurance, which eventually grew into the workplace perk that it is today. Shortly after, in 1945, President Truman called on Congress to create a national insurance program for those who could pay voluntary fees. However, the American Medical Association denounced the idea as socialized medicine, and progress in this area was promptly halted. Then, both President Nixon and President Carter wanted to continue to push for more health care reform, but their efforts were overshadowed by the Watergate scandal and the economic recession. And of course, President Clinton famously put First Lady Hillary in charge of developing a comprehensive plan for universal coverage. It required businesses to cover their workers and mandated that everyone have health insurance. The plan met some strong opposition, however, and it died in the Senate. But now, under the presidency of Barack Obama, what is happening in the field of healthcare? The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare or the Federal Health Care Law, aims to reform the American healthcare system and provide affordable, quality healthcare to all Americans. It is widely considered to be the most significant regulatory overhaul of the U.S. healthcare system since the passage of Medicare and Medicaid in 1965. The bill was signed into law on March 23, 2010, and was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on June 28, 2012, in the case National Federation of Independent Business v. Sebelius. The Supreme Court, in an opinion written by Chief Justice Roberts, upheld the individual mandate to buy health insurance as a constitutional exercise of Congress's taxing power. A majority of the justices agreed that the individual mandate was not a proper use of Congress's Commerce Clause or Necessary and Proper Clause powers, but they did not join in a single opinion.
Different ways of looking at this, and I'll be curious to see what the reaction is on the right, whether they view this as some kind of a sellout, some kind of abdication of authority, or whether they view this as sufficiently nuanced as a decision.
Obamacare imposes a new requirement on all U.S. citizens to obtain government-approved health insurance. For most Americans, this will mean that they're required to either pay a portion of their income to a private health insurance company or pay a fine, sometimes called a tax, to the federal government for not doing so. By 2016, this penalty is going to cost either 2.5% of a person's income or a set price of $695 per person and $2,085 per family. Whichever option is larger is the penalty cost for the uninsured citizen. Of course, there are several exceptions to having to purchase health insurance, one being that those who have to spend more than 8% of their income to purchase a healthcare plan do not have to follow the mandate law. There are around 45 million Americans who do not have health insurance. And when these people need to go to the emergency room, the hospitals have to endure the cost that these uninsured people are requiring when they are treated in the ER. Ultimately, the insured Americans are the ones who have to pay more to cover this cost. Obamacare wants to even this payment more equally by making the uninsured pay for the insurance costs that they're already using. Obamacare also argues that by requiring people to have preventative health care, they would not need to go to the ER in the first place. Yet many argue against this, saying it is out of place for the government to force people to buy certain things. Many believe that Obamacare establishes a complex, one-size-fits-all healthcare system that centralizes America's healthcare decisions in Washington. Okay, how do you feel about Obamacare?
Well, personally, Obamacare is going to seriously negatively impact my family and our business. We have an optical laboratory and an optometric practice, and Obamacare won't officially be in place until 2014, but it's already starting to have negative impacts on their business because Davidson Vision and Highmark are trying to make everyone use their health insurance program, and when that happens, like a small town business like my family's is going to be hurt because the patients that have that Obamacare aren't going to be able to come to our lab or our optometric practice, so we're just going to be losing a lot of business that way. They're only going to be able to go to those government subsidized labs and practices. So not only for my family, but other optometric practices across the nation are really going to suffer that way, as I'm sure other health services will. And it's also going to impact my family's employees. Like for the past 20, 30 years, we've been able to provide health insurance for all of the employees, and after this comes into effect, it's going to, cost a lot more and affect the whole financial aspect of our business.
Another major stipulation of Obamacare is the idea that health insurance companies can no longer base the premiums for health insurance plans off of pre-existing conditions. Those who suffer from serious diseases or maladies and are uninsured are currently likely to be denied insurance plans, and when they do get them, they're extremely expensive since the insurance company knows that they're going to be taking a serious loss should the condition require a significant amount of patient care. Under Obamacare, premiums can only be based off of age and geography.
And my brother, my younger brother, he has type 1 diabetes, and insurance companies used to just drop people like him just because they say he has a pre-existing condition, so they just stop covering people like him.
Obamacare also calls for insurance exchanges that allows one to compare and contrast different insurance policies more easily and create more transparency in the buying and selling process. However, it is a requirement that all of these plans allow individuals under 26 to remain on their parents' plan. Previously, kids would be forced off their parents' plan as soon as they turned 18. Essentially, the controversy on whether or not Obamacare is a good method to regulate health insurance comes down to whether or not the government does or should have the ability to force citizens to buy health insurance. Otherwise, most politicians and citizens agree that healthcare needs to be more affordable and that there needs to be a decrease in the number of uninsured Americans. Regardless of anyone's opinion, Obamacare has already had some of its provisions enacted, and the rest of the act will be fully implemented by 2014. So when you think about the government and the role it should play in our lives as individuals and collectively as a national society, ask yourself, is Obamacare allowing the government to overstep its bounds, or is it just what this country needs?
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!